Welcome to Creepy Confidential. I'm your host, Noelle, your resident weirdo Wisconsinite. I open case files on cryptids, cults, conspiracies, and otherworldly creepy, bringing you new cases, live broadcasts, and local lore. So get ready, creeps. It's Creepy Confidential. Warning. Today's episode includes descriptions of death, voodoo practices, and a Wisconsinite butchering the French language. Listener discretion is advised. By definition, death is the permanent cessation of vital functions. But what constitutes cessation? And how is one to recognize the function in question? Dr. Nathan S. Klein, psychiatrist and pioneer in the field of psychopharmacology. Spring, 1962. On a small island floating in the Caribbean, east of Cuba, located on a mystical island known as the Republic of Haiti, a local peasant walks into the emergency entrance of an American-operated facility. He provides the name Clairvius Narcisse. April 30th at 9:45 p.m., he is admitted for an acute severe illness. His symptoms include a severe fever, fatigue, and he is coughing up blood and deteriorating very rapidly. May 2nd, 1:15 p.m., he is pronounced dead by two physicians. His sister, Angelina, is present at bedside at the passing and notifies the family. The eldest sister, Marie, arrives, witnesses the body, and then adds her thumbprint to notarize the document. His body is placed in cold storage for 20 hours while the family makes his funeral arrangements. May 3rd, 1962. Mr. Narcisse is laid to rest in a small cemetery north of his village. 10 days after his interment, a heavy concrete memorial slab is placed on the gravesite by his family and puts him to rest. 1980. 18 years following the passing of her brother, Angelina Narcisse is shopping at the El Ester marketplace when she is approached by a man. He introduces himself by a nickname that startles her. It's a name only close family would know, and hasn't been spoken since she and her siblings were children. The man is claiming to be her brother, Clairvius Narcisse. What's up, creeps? Welcome to the curious case of Clairvius Narcisse, aka the living zombie. I'm in the Creepy Confidential library hanging out with the pup Marcy. You might hear her periodically. She likes to huff and puff. I'm having a warm beverage because Ohio just won't let winter leave. Today I'm enjoying some new tea I picked up at the Curiosities and Oddities Expo this past weekend. Me and Mr. Creep walked around, enjoyed all of the curiosities, and we stumbled upon a booth called the Weeping Glass. And this tea is called the Botanist. And now it's kind of odd, the tea, but in all the right ways. This one has lavender and sage, and it's very strange, but I love it. No sponsor, but really, if you guys hear this, it's amazing. But moving on. I'll post a pic of it on our IG for you to check out. So all the fellow creeps out there, if they're into some cool botanical teas, this one, oh yeah, baby, it's good. So you'll hear me sipping on that. So let's continue on for the day. Now, before we get into the episode, we're going to take care of some little housekeeping that we like to do. Try and put it at the beginning. Remember to give us a follow wherever you are listening to us. If you have an Alexa, aka the government monitoring device, just say, Alexa, play the podcast Creepy Confidential, and there we will be. We are on Spotify, Audible, and YouTube as well. You can give us a follow on Instagram for sneak peeks, events, interviews, and shout outs to our favorite creeps who are giving us all the love. Okay, housekeeping done. So let's talk about zombies, shall we? So what do these things all have in common? Walking Dead, Night of the Living Dead, Z Nation, World War Z. They all involve zombies. Books, video games, TV shows, art, everywhere we look, zombies. For some strange reason, especially Western culture, we've become absolutely obsessed with the zombie. Tattered skin, missing limbs, lifeless stare, just decomposing right before our eyes. Sometimes they're chomping, sometimes they're clicking their jaws. If you've seen World War Z, oh my God, no. The walking kind of in a stumbling, fumbling nature. Honestly, to me, the most terrifying ones are the running zombies. I'm built for strength, not speed, baby. I'm strong as an ox, but slow as a sloth. Man, I hope we don't have to run from zombies in my lifetime, or I am screwed. Anywho, back to zombies. Now, these are all, if you think about what's all in common with these ones I mentioned, they're very much dead and decomposing. They're reanimated, but they are very, very dead. What if I told you that there are zombies that exist that are very much alive, not decomposing, and just their existence, they're still alive, but no longer in control of their emotions or their mind? Today we are discussing one of the most famous cases of the living zombie and the Bokors that practice this illegal process. We start this journey by traveling across the vast pond to Haiti to discuss a case of voodoo that has me chilled, because it checks not one, but two things on my phobia list: the fear of being buried alive and the fear of being turned into a zombie. So let's break this one down. The who, the what, when, where, and why, and even the how in this instance, since we have some science to chat about. I think starting with the claims that Clairvius had post-zombification is a good place to start. So he was laid to rest May 3rd. Sometime between that night and before the memorial stone was laid on the grave, he was resurrected, beaten, bound, and led away by a team of men that, according to him, also stole his soul. For 2 years, he was under the spell of a Bokor, or a zombie master, and made to work on the sugar fields as a slave. Eventually, this zombie master was killed, and the slaves that survived regained their consciousness, according to him. Clairvius would wander for 16 years, claiming his fear of his vengeful brother is what kept him away, and only following his brother's death did he feel he could return. He claimed to be made a zombie by his brother because of a land dispute. In Haiti, land must be divided among the male offspring, and according to him, he had refused to sell off a part of his inheritance, and in a fit of anger, his brother had put a contract out of him to have the Bokor perform the zombification ritual on him. So let's do a little Tarantino moment here again. You guys know I like to do that. So let's jump back, shall we? Clairvius was a resident of Les Esters community, born January 2nd, 1922. At the time of his illness, though, that he presented to the ER, he was 40 years old. Now, I would like to say that he was an upstanding citizen in his community. However, that is not the case from what I can find. Rumors flowed of his less than frugal nature, of his loving multiple children that he did not accept responsibility for. He was known to be quarrelsome with his family, with his peers, and he just pretty much enriched himself financially, completely at the expense of others. I did read somewhere that he was the first one to put a tin roof on his home in his town, strictly because he took on no financial responsibilities at all. One of the top big no-nos he committed was his refusal to cede his share of the family land. Now, this is a huge issue in Haiti due to just the kind of the small size of the island, limited availability of food, and limited availability to provide for one's family. So now, on to what we're all here for: zombification a la Haitian Voodoo. Now, Mr. Max Beauvoir, the supreme chief of Haitian Voodoo, I think explained the practice of Haitian Voodoo to me. I kind of heard this sentence and it made sense, that it is not something physical, but spiritual. And I'm going to read a quote from him. Quote, "A zombie is someone who has misbehaved. In fact, somebody that in any other society would be called a criminal. Most likely, in other societies, this person would have been condemned to death. Our society, like every society, has decided that certain crimes are intolerable. Voodoo doesn't believe in killing people, so in fact, this is why even that person considered a criminal is not killed. We move from him or her that desire of committing bad deeds, and that this is what zombification is all about. End quote. So there's two parts to that. I'm part of me is like, okay, I can read that, and I get it that you don't want to kill people, but you are drugging people and making them do things that are not to their will. Like if they're bad people, I guess here in the States, you put them in jail. But, who am I to make that decision? I feel that maybe in their mind, they consider this some sort of like reprogramming. It's not voluntary, and the person has to go through hell to get there. So I don't know. It's a way of punishing others for their wrongs. That was the part I was like, oh, okay. Now, so they aren't dead or in jail, but they spend their life or whatever time being cursed. So let's talk about the process. First, a bokor, or voodoo priest, creates this concoction, or potion. This will be delivered to the victim to make them ill and appear to be delivered into death's arms. The initial dose of this part 1 procedure is typically given to the victim through the skin, according to kind of the descriptions that I could find. But the problem with this also is not all that are given this mixture survive. I mean, for realsies, like they said, half of the time people could die because of the poisons. 50% of the time are lethal. They're dead. You can die. This potion is said to contain a mix of several interesting ingredients. So some of them are fairly inert. The potion is said to contain a mix of several interesting ingredients: velvet bean, cane toad, bearded fireworm, tarantula, cashew leaves, pufferfish, Jimson weed, and lastly, the bones of a child. Now, the second part of this concoction is a paste that is fed to the zombie post-resurrection and the physical abuse, and this contains a fruit called the cocombre zombie, aka the zombie cucumber. Now, this part is actually a seed pod that is attached to the Jimson weed. So I find that kind of interesting. Now, when I look through this list of contents, I see things that are fairly inert. Some of them just don't make sense. However, I see a few that are real doozies. And if you're maybe a science nerd or you just know a little bit about poisonous animals, then you'll know what stands out. The big one here is pufferfish. This bad boy contains a compound called TTX, or tetradotoxin. This one may ring a bell, and you've probably heard of the little fish called fugu. Now, that's the Japanese version of the pufferfish. Now, over in Japan, they serve this fugu as a delicacy. You have to have a very special set of skills to be able to serve this dish. You can kill people with it, but it's known to give you basically a light toxicity when served correctly. But if it's served wrong in a sushi, it's a one-way trip to the other side, meaning we'll be ghost hunting you soon. R.I.P. The pufferfish venom, local to Haiti, is 1,200 more times deadly than cyanide and 160,000 times more potent than cocaine. Often deadly, and there is no antidote for pufferfish. Cane toad is another one that pops up. I thought that sounded familiar, and this one is another one that can kill you. Now, or at least make you very, very sick. Its little skin glands, on these little warty creatures secrete a poison called buffotoxin, and that's another one. Now, for these ones, when I could try and look up kind of the toxicity and how you can come across them, it mostly just kills small animals, mammals that try and eat them, and for humans, it just makes you sick. And then, of course, we have the zombie cucumber, aka Jimson weed, aka datura. This is the top tier of the zombie poisons when I read through them because it's kind of multiple pieces of the plant. This weed causes feverish delirium, hallucinations, and leaves the individual in a, you guessed it, zombie-like state. So part 2 of the zombification procedure post-resurrection is to feed the victim a paste containing this weed and to give them a salt-free diet. Why salt-free, you ask? Have you ever had heat stroke? That woozy feeling like you're about to just pass out? That because of dehydration, that's what your brain just is all jacked up. And that one little element, salt, can really make you feel, lack of salt, can make you feel like you don't know who you are, where you are, or even what you're doing. Now imagine that, plus being poisoned with something from the nightshade family, coursing through your veins, and voila, zombie. I have so many questions though. Why not exhume the body? At that time, the body would have been so decomposed that you would no longer be able to tell who it was, 18 years later, because they don't use any sort of embalming techniques. DNA wasn't a thing yet, so there is no testing there. But what about now? It's 2023 and no one is willing to put their money to their curiosity. Now, I don't have the cash flowing around, but I'm sure somebody does. Exhume the bodies in the graves of both Clairvius, now, since he passed away in the 90s, the living zombie guy, and then the original grave from where Clairvius should have been. There should be a body in there. If there is, now DNA these guys, test them with the families, and find out if this is true. The science skeptic side of me, this is where I'm like, come on, people. So at the time he came back, they put him through a rigorous amount, kind of interrogations, essentially, using questions that only his family and him would know. And he passed with flying colors. Clairvius even had a scar on his face that he claimed was from the nail when they put it in the coffin. Can you imagine being aware of everything that is happening and being buried alive? Oh my God, that kind of makes my heart just pound just thinking about it. The muffles and then the silence and then the closeness of the coffin. Oh my God, no thank you. No thank you. Again, that's a big fear of mine. So coming to the end here. So with all that little lovely imagery, as we leave you today, I have a book to suggest that you check out about this week's topic. I've already posted it up on our Instagram, but just to do a quick description of it, it's called The Serpent and the Rainbow by Wade Davis. He was, he's still around, a Harvard scientist, and I'll read the description to you. A Harvard scientist uncovers the startling truth about the secret world of Haitian Voodoo. Now, this is from 1985, so it is an older book, and I do believe this was actually used as like a textbook for a class. It's small. It's like book size. It's not one of those huge books. And there is a little controversy around his research and kind of the application of the drugs mentioned in the formulas and what it actually did and the science, But for a creepy science nerd like me, it is a very interesting read. So I would suggest picking it up. I really hope you enjoyed today's episode of discussing the living zombie, also known as the Haitian zombie. And I would suggest picking up the book. It's very interesting. I have another book that I'm very excited that it came. It's a first edition of The Magic Island. It's from 1929. It does have, of course, language and instances from that era where it can be a little jarring, but it's also about this very weird author, Seabrook, basically his journey into Haiti, about voodoo and the things he saw. But you have to remember that it's from the eyes of this very strange cannibal man from 1920s. Just have to remember the language he uses. But it inspired so many other, like White Zombie, the movie, and then of course that inspired the band, and that's kind of where it brought zombies to the Western culture. So I'm excited to go through that. The book needs a little repair, but oh my God, it's the first edition. It's amazing. So I hope everybody really enjoyed that, and I will hopefully be diving into that book soon. I'll get started here on the next episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you would like to contact us here at Creepy Confidential, you have any questions about the episodes or something, if you'd like to schedule an interview, we are at creepyconfidentialpodcast@gmail.com. Again, don't forget, give us a follow. Hope you enjoyed, and stay creepy, my friends. And join us next time here on Creepy Confidential.